recording. Okay, and now I'm gonna share my screen. All right. Okay, so now I'm sharing my screen, and we are gonna move ahead with the session. Okay. All right. So can anybody confirm that you can see my screen before we move ahead? Okay.
Yes, it's visible. Thank you, Leandro.
Thank you, Lily. All right. So as we were saying, this is one of the pre-sessions for the Reporting Academy, and in the Reporting Academy, we will cover different tools, right? Different tools that we can use in order to build reports. And one of these tools, it's Excel. Okay, why? Because many times the data we export from Umoja, either ECC, SRM, or BI, is not in the format we would like the data to be, or sometimes we even have to combine data coming from different sources like SRM and ECC, and we have to combine both data in order to build our reports. Okay, and one of the tools we can use is Excel. Okay, so yesterday we sent to you a set of documents. Okay, we sent to you this presentation together with a Word document with some prerequisites. Okay, for this session, these are functionalities that are available in Excel. All right. We will not cover these functionalities during the session as they are kind of more basic, but in case you need help, right, on how to navigate it, or how to work with worksheets, how to do the formatting of cells, okay, or background, how to work with formulas and functions, and how to create charts and graphs, you can always refer to this Word document that we sent to all of you yesterday. Okay, so we sent these Word documents with some basic functionalities in Excel. Okay, we also sent to you the presentation we are going to review today, and then for the practical exercises we sent to you two different documents. One Word document with the description of the exercises, and an Excel file that we are going to use for the exercises. Okay, so as per any other pre-session, after the WebEx, after we end with this WebEx, we are going to be asking each of you to do some practice, okay, with Excel for this particular session, and we will be asking you to do some actions and to return back to us the Excel file with the exercises applied. Okay. All right. So let's move ahead. As we were saying, the prerequisites or the requirements are in the Word document, and it covers these functionalities from basic navigation up to charts and graphs. Okay, so in case you need or you want to know more about any of these functionalities, you can always refer to our prerequisites documents. Okay, what we are going to cover in this session, we are going to cover mainly these three functionalities that we consider are quite important to build reports. So we are going to focus mainly on how to build pivot tables, right, as a way of summarizing our data exported from different sources in Umoja. We are going to also describe what do we mean by a table in Excel, all right, and we will talk about the advantages that it provides to us when we convert a range into a table. Okay, and we will also discuss on how to deal with duplicated values and how to get rid of the duplicate values if needed. Okay. For other kind of functionalities like how to build formulas. If we have time, we will also try to cover that part, but we want to focus mainly on pivot tables and tables as a great tools in order to summarize a data coming from Umoja. Okay. So how are we going to structure the session? Before we go into the practical exercises, we are going to provide a brief explanation, all right, of the functionality. What do we mean by a pivot table and what pivot tables are used for? Once we review the functionality, I'll do a demo. Okay, so I'll use the Excel file we sent to you for the exercise, and I'll do a kind of a brief demo. I will build a pivot table, and I will show you the main features of pivot tables and tables. All right, and this we are going to do it during the session, and after we finish the session, each of you will have to go and use the will have to go through the exercise and use Excel to build your own pivot tables and tables. All right, so we believe that the best way of learning how to do things is to do it by yourselves. Okay, that's why we are sending to each of you the exercise, and we have another optional session this afternoon in case you are doing the exercise and you have questions or comments, or you have any kind of issue when you are trying to do your exercise. Okay, so this afternoon session is mainly as a support session for you during the exercise. All right. Okay. As for the exercises, as an example of data, we are using data coming from the travel module. All right, but consider this just as an example. Okay, so we can use the same functionalities. We can use pivot tables regardless of the data. So in this case, we are using a list of travel requests, but we could use the same features. Let's say we are talking about commitment items coming from the FM module, or let's say we could extract a list of shopping carts from SRM and apply the same features in Excel. Okay. All right. So any question or comment about the structure of the session? So remember that after the session, you will have to do your own exercise and send it back to us so that we know that you are also able to use Excel to build pivot tables and tables. Okay, and also during the workshop, there will be another exercises on Excel. So we want you to get familiar with that before you reach Valencia. Okay, so let's start with the concept of pivot tables. Okay, so pivot tables. When thinking about pivot tables, think about a great way in Excel to build summaries. Okay, so let's say you extract from Umoja a set of data. Okay, and you want to build your own summary. Okay, so when you have to provide summaries on data in Excel, think about pivot tables on a great tool for that purpose. Okay, so maybe they are not that well known, the feature of pivot tables, but you will see that it's not that difficult, and when you start building your own pivot tables to summarize data, you will start using more and more often. Okay, and they can be used in many different scenarios. All right, to build your own summary. Okay, so build your own summary tables. Okay, so once you extract data from Umoja, you have to make sure that all your columns have a header, okay, and you have to make sure that there are no blank rows within your data. So if you have your data exported properly from Umoja, you will be able to build your pivot table, and we are going to show it to you in the exercise. So remember, summary in Excel are easy built with pivot tables. Okay. So how do we build? Here you have the steps in case you want to go back to this slide to know how to build your own pivot tables. All right. So we will need to select any cell within our data. There will be a button, okay, to create the pivot table, right? We will have to specify where do we want the pivot table to be located. All right. Usually we place the pivot table in a new worksheet. Okay, but it can be also adjusted. And by clicking on OK, the kind of blank grid for pivot tables will appear so that we can start customizing or we can start building our pivot table. Okay, so these are the 4 steps to build our pivot table. I think once you practice several times, you will easily remember these steps. Okay, and then once we have the blank grid, we will have to configure our pivot table by assigning the different fields we want to display in the summary. So we will have a kind of panel with all the different columns. We can distribute and we can arrange the different fields as columns, as rows, or as values. Okay, so these are the steps to build your own pivot table. And here in the next slide we have how a pivot table looks like, okay, in Excel. So this is the pivot table grid. So after we have followed the 5 steps we have described, we have built a pivot table. So as you can see on the right of the screen, we have here the different fields. All right, so these are the fields that we extracted from Umoja. Let's say in this example, we are talking about travel requests. That's why we have here trim numbers, some data about the traveler, okay, like the employee group, employee user group. Okay, so here on the right we have the list of fields appearing in our data, and on the bottom we have the different areas we can use to build our pivot table. So we have the columns area, right? We have the rows area, the filters, and the values. So how do we build our pivot table? We can build our pivot table by just dragging and dropping one of the fields into one of the different areas here. For example, in this case, we have moved the travel category, right, from the list of fields into the columns area, right? That's why in the pivot table we can see the travel category in the different columns. So we have entitlement travel as one of the travel categories, HR travel, official travel, okay, and the total. So by moving one of the fields into the columns, this system or Excel will automatically split our summary based on the field that we have configured here in columns. Same thing for the rows. So we have moved employee group and employee subgroup into the rows area, and that's why here in the different rows we have the different employee groups. So we have employee group international staff, we have employee group local staff, and we have another employee group that is all non-staff people. All right, and we even moved 2 different fields into the rows. So we have employee group and employee subgroup. That's why under the employee group, let's say, for example, international staff, we have the employees group professional and above, right? Under the employee group local staff, we have the different subgroups. We have general service, we have language teachers, and trades and craft. So we can arrange different fields into the different areas. Filters. As a filter, we have indicated here the personnel area and how filters are reflected in our pivot table. So as you can see, the personnel area appears at the top. So filters appear at the top so that we can filter by this field. So we can use always the filter option to filter by personnel area. So in this case, in this example, it seems this filter only to show trips from travelers belonging to United States as personnel area. So filters will appear in the pivot tables at the top of the pivot table. Okay, and we only have one missing area, that is the values. So as you can see in this example, we've moved the cost of the trip as values. All right, so everything that is set up as values is the data that will appear as values in the pivot table. You can see that we've moved the cost of the trip, and that's why the pivot table is showing the total cost of the trip for each employee group and for each travel category. So for example, these $4,700 correspond to all trips belonging to entitlement travel category and for international staff travelers, right? Same thing for this 1,200. So this 1,200 correspond to all entitlement travel for language teachers. Okay. So depending on our configuration or what we which fields we drag and drop into the different areas, into columns areas, rows area, values area, or filter area, the pivot table will be updated accordingly. Okay. All right. So as we said, here at the left part of the screen we have the results, okay, of the pivot table, and in the right part we have the list of fields and different areas to configure our pivot table. Okay. So without any other delay, let's show this functionality live in Excel. Okay. All right. Feel free to use the chat if you want to ask any question or do any comment. I don't know if you were already familiar with this concept, with this functionality in Excel. So maybe some of you are, some others don't. Okay, so let me move to the Excel file. Okay, so as you can see, this is the Excel file we have sent to you for the exercises. All right, so we have in the first sheet we have the list of travel requests. Okay, so each row corresponds to a different travel request. Okay, so we have in the first column the personal number of the traveler. We have different data about the traveler, and on the right we have, for example, the trip number. Okay, so in column L we have the trip number for that particular row. So we are going to use this this Excel as an example, and as we were saying, the pivot tables can be used for any kind of data. It could be shopping carts, it could be funds commitments, or different type of data extracted from Umoja or from any other source. All right. So how can we build a pivot table, right? And this is gonna be one of the different questions that we are gonna be asking you to do in the exercise. So if we look at the exercises we sent to you, so this is the Word document that we sent to you for the Excel exercises. All right. So as you can see, for example, question number 2 will ask you to create a pivot table, all right, using the Excel file we've shown before, and to build a pivot table that displays like this one, all right. We will ask you to build another pivot table to display like this one. So we will be asking you to build different pivot tables to get familiar with the process and on how to configure different pivot tables to count, for example, number of trips, to, for example, get the by percentage. Okay, so this is what we are gonna be showing to you in the demo right now. So how do we build a pivot table? So we're saying that we just select any cell within the range. We can see that the first row corresponds to headers, right? So we have all the different columns with a proper header, and that we have a bunch of data. So in this Excel, we have a total of 424 trips, right? So we have 425 rows. The first row corresponds to the header. So in total, we have 424 different trips, and we are gonna be building pivot tables to summarize this list of travel requests. Okay. So how do we build a pivot table? We just select any cell within the range. We go to the Insert ribbon, and we click on the pivot table button. Okay. So we click on the pivot table button, and as you can see, Excel will automatically detect our range of data. So as you can see, in the first thing we will need to do is to select where is our data, but Excel is automatically detecting where our data is. So Excel is automatically populating that our data is in the list of travel request worksheet, and it's located between cells A1 and cell AR425. Right? We could even double check that one. All right, so we can make sure that the data is in that range. So our last column, if we go to the right, our last column is in column AR, and our last row, it's row 425. So automatically Excel it's detecting the proper range. All right, insert pivot table. This range is correct from A1 to AR425. The second thing we will need to choose is the where do we want our pivot table to be placed. So by default, Excel will place the pivot table in a new worksheet. We can even place the pivot table in an existing one by selecting the second option. And in this case, we are going to place it in a new worksheet, so Excel will automatically create a new one. Okay. This case, the last option, we don't normally select it, so it will be used in case we want to build a data model to build pivot tables coming from different ranges of data. So in this case, we only have one range of data, our data is all together in the list worksheets page. Okay, so we are going to click on OK, and as you see, Excel automatically created a new worksheet. We can even rename it. I can even rename it by right-clicking and click on rename, and I can change it to summary travel requests. And as you can see, our pivot table is now blank. So we have our fields on the right part of the screen. So I have here all the different columns, right? One field per column. So my first column was the personnel number, and the last column was the expense report submitted field. All right, and the pivot table displays blank. So how can we build our pivot table? We will build our pivot table by dragging and dropping each field into the different areas. So in this case, I selected the personnel area field, okay, and as you can see, I can decide to place it as filters, as columns, as rows, or as values. And depending on where I place this field, it will have a consequence, right, in the pivot table. So if I display it as rows, you can see that in the pivot table, each personnel area will appear as rows. If I put it as columns, I will have one personnel area for each column, right? If I select it as filters, the pivot table will have a filter, automatical filter.
And if it was not mute, my sound will be there.
Yes.
Okay.
So I should
Please remember to. You don't have any questions. Please remember to mute your microphone.
I am active on this, you know.
Okay.
Like this.
Good morning, Sarah. I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Don't worry. I'll mute yourself.
Okay.
Thank you for joining. Okay, so we were talking about the effect, right, that the field will have, right? We've seen that we can put it as rows, and the different personnel areas will appear as rows. We can place it as filters, as columns. What about values? What will happen if I place the personnel area as values? Can anybody guess what will happen if I place personnel area as values?
Now I muted it, huh?
All right.
Okay.
So please try to mute yourself.
Yeah, you muted the video.
Okay. So let's move ahead. You can still hear me, right? So can anybody guess what will happen if I place the personnel area as values? What will be the effect in the pivot table? Any help from your side? So Paola, you also raise your hand. Please go ahead. You can unmute your microphone.
No thanks, I think, because there's nothing to be summarized.
All right, nothing will appear. All right. Any other idea? All right. So when as you said that there's nothing to be summarized, okay? All right. So yes. So we have one of the participants, Lara, that said that that Excel will automatically count. All right. So let's try to do it. So basically that's the answer. Okay. So yes. So automatically Excel will count. Will apply a count. So if the field that is placed as values is a text, okay, that personnel area in this case is a text, Excel will automatically count the number of different rows. Okay, so we said that our list of data had 424 rows, and this is what Excel is displaying. All right, if we put it as values. If we drag and drop a numeric value, like for example the cost of the trip, instead of a count, Excel will automatically perform a sum. So we will add up all the different costs of the trips, and instead of showing 424, here we have the total for all the trips. Right, so this is $900,000 dollars corresponds to the total for all the different trips, right, appearing in our Excel file. Right. So you can see that depending on where we place the fields, Excel will automatically perform, or will automatically adjust the pivot table. So, for example, we were playing the personnel area as rows. So, as you can see now, we place the personnel area as rows, and now we have the different personnel area, one for each row, and we have the total, the cost of the trip for each personnel area. So we can see, for example, that Switzerland, right, has the higher cost in terms of trips, and for example, we only have a few dollars spent on traveling people belonging to Dominican Republic as personnel area, right? So you can see that you can filter, or you can arrange your pivot table using the different fields. So now we are using the cost of the trip to summarize. We can do the same, for example, if we want to, instead of building the summary table and count the cost of the trip, we can, for example, arrange, and we can count. We can put, for example, how many travel requests we have. We can use, for example, the employee group and put it as values. So we said that if it's a text value, it will automatically count. That's why we can see here count, and we have the grand total of 424, and now we can see how many travel requests we have for each personal area. Right? We can have by personal area, and then build and put the personal sub-area within, or also as rows, and this will have an impact, right, on how the pivot table is displayed. For example, we can see now that the 108 travel requests for travelers belonging to Haiti as personal area, we have now the split by sub-area. So we can see that most of them corresponds to a person belonging to Port-au-Prince as personal sub-area. Right? So you can play with it in order to build your own pivot tables. We can also use the columns area. For example, if we want to display, or we want to split our data by employee group, for example, national versus international staff, we can drag and drop the employee group to the columns, all right? And now we can see international staff in column D, external staff in column C, and conference language staff in column B, right? So let's remove this sub-area to make it a little bit smaller, and we can see now that the 424 list of travel requests.
WebEx conference. Tell me what's the medicine you want?
Yeah. So do you have any questions?
Yes,
or?
we have this Codil. Definitely it's available. Yeah, don't rush.
Yeah. So
Apart
please,
from
Sahar.
we have also lactulose.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I could mute yourself. So if you have like, any question or comment, please remember to mute your microphone. Okay. So you can see that you can arrange your pivot table based on your needs. So in this case, we are showing the number of travel requests by area as columns, and sorry, as rows, and employee group as columns. All right. Another very nice functionality about Excel and pivot tables is that you can double click on one of the cells, all right, and Excel will automatically show to you the particular set of data. For example, we can see here that we have, let's align it center. Okay, we have only one travel request that corresponds to personal area Kenya and conference language staff. So if we want to know which one is this one, we can just double click on the cell, and automatically a new worksheet will appear with that travel request. So we don't need to go through our original data and look for it. Okay, so we can just double click and Excel will automatically display it. Right. So Abdul is saying that there is a kind of problem with the audio. What about the others? Can you still hear me? Okay, thank you, Lucia.
Yes, we hear you.
You
Can
okay.
hear
Can
you.
hear you.
All right, so there should be an issue from Abdul's side. Okay, all right. So I'll reply to him by using the chat. All right. So as we were saying, we can double click in any of the cells, and Excel will automatically display the range of data. So, for example, the same thing for Thailand and international staff. If we want to see which are these 20 travel requests, we double click. Excel will open a new worksheet displaying the 20 travel requests that are for international staff and for personal area Thailand. Right, so pivot tables are a great way of understanding your data. So remember, we had a list of travel requests that we had a lot of them. There can be thousands. Okay, in this case we have less than 500, but by using pivot tables we can understand our set of data. Okay. In this case, we are counting the number of trips. We can also add the cost of the trip. So we go to the cost of the trip and we move it to values, right? So we can have several values. And now we have the number, right? So we can even change. We can see number of TR. So we can put TR number or number of TRs, and we can have cost, okay? Cost in dollars. All right. So we have now both. So for example, for international staff, we have let's think about the first row. Let's think about Congo, right? For MONUSCO, we have 2 TRs. And the 2 TRs have a total cost of 1,744, right? Same thing for Thailand, right? So we can understand the number of TRs and what's the total cost in dollars for each of the employee groups, international, local, external, and for each of the personal areas. Okay, so you can see that is quite powerful. Right, pivot table feature.
Sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
Just for here, for example, regarding the total cost in dollars, let's compare to Thailand and Switzerland and the United States, okay? So the
Yeah.
amount in Thailand, the number of international staff is less than that of USA,
Yeah.
but the value is more. So how we can also put in the report the like unit cost or something, you know, just to, can we do that? Because
Yes,
it's
you
just
could.
to logically to see the increase in the relation proportionally, and number
Sure,
is
sure.
increasing, cost is increasing. So, but the value of the cost depends from one country to another
So,
or trip.
very good question. Okay, so as our colleague was saying, we have here the total number of trips, all right, and here we have the total cost. So we have, in the case of international in the States, we have more trips, but in total costing less, okay? So how can we build, how can we could even report on the unit cost for each travel, okay? So an easy way would be to use or to add a new column, right? A calculated column in the list of travel requests. So we could even go back and add, right? We could even add a new column here, right? Let's say, for example, that all right. So okay, so you want to report on the total number, right? So
And the unit cost.
on the unit cost, okay. So we will need to build all right, we will need to build a new field, okay, a calculated field.
Can we add it? So
Yes.
it's not there in the basic field, in the, I mean, data field.
Yeah, so we will need to use the calculated field functionality, all right, because we want to build a kind of a calculated field, right? So we will need to, for example, unit cost, and then here we will need to put it will be what? It will be the cost of the trip, right?
Yes.
Cost of the trip divided by, right? Divided by the number of trips, right? Yeah.
No, the unit cost is only the value, the price of the.
Yeah, but it will have to be a calculated value, right? Because it's all right.
Okay. Means
Okay.
price per cost per trip. Mm.
Yeah, cost per trip by the number of trips, right? So yeah. So let me look into that one, okay? I'll have to reply back because it's the calculated field, because depending on the total, right? The unit price will be different, okay? So let me look into it if there will be a way to add it, okay? Because I mean you can always do it next to it, right? But it's not gonna be maybe the best way, okay? So let me look into what would be the best option to add this calculated field, okay? Because it's not an easy, we cannot do it here, right? Because we still don't know how your pivot tables is gonna be built, right? So you cannot build it here.
But it's mentioned here, cost of the trip is already there.
Yeah, the cost of the trip, yes, right? But you have to, in order to calculate the unit price, you need to do it by the total number of trips that there are in that group. So for example, in this group, we have 20, but if I change, for example, if instead of putting the personal area, I put personal sub-area, instead of 20, I will have 1 or 3, right? So that the unit price will have to change depending on how you are configuring your pivot table, right? So it's not something we already have available in our original data, okay? But I take that question on, and when we send the exercise, I'll also provide details on the best way to use calculated fields.
So how the total cost is considered? Based on
Yeah,
what?
the cost, yes, one. So what is this total cost? This total cost, let me double click on here, right? So I'm
Yes.
gonna double click and the system will display the 20 travel requests for international staff belonging to Thailand. So if I double click here, right, the system will display 20 travel requests, and if I go to the total cost column, right, to the column cost of the trip, that is column P, if we add all these travel requests, we can see, right? So we can even add a total column here, and we can do a sum, right? So if we sum all the values, we can see that the total cost is 48,000. That is the number that is appearing in our summary, right? Is 48,000. So it's adding up all the different costs. So in order to calculate the unit price, we should be dividing this 48,000 by 20, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's clear. This is
Leandro.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Abdu. Hello?
Hello? Yes.
All right. But yeah, I got your point on calculating the unit price, but I have to look into that one, okay? Because
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
all right. You're welcome. So please remember to mute your microphone. All right. But at least, is it clear how to arrange your data into in using a pivot table? So you'll have to work with the example, right, with this list of travel requests to build the pivot tables we are asking to you in the exercise. Okay. The best way to learn is by doing. So that's why we are asking you to build your own pivot tables, and while you are doing your own, you will really understand how these different areas and different fields work and what's the impact in your pivot table. Okay. All right. So let's move ahead and let's talk about the second concept we would like to cover in this session, and it relates to tables, right? There is specific functionality, a specific feature in Excel that is called tables, okay? And it's a way of turning a range of data into a table so we are saying to Excel, by building a table, we are indicating that our group of data is related one with each other, and we can analyze the data as a group, okay? So they are no longer a range of cells, but they are an interrelated set of data. And Excel, by turning a range of data into tables, it will provide additional features. Okay, which are these features that come by default when converting a range of data into a table? Right. So these features are, right. So sorting and filtering will become easier, right, and will become by default when we convert a range of data into a table. So automatically the drop-down lists, all right, will be available in the header so that we can apply sorting and filtering. What else? So when we convert a range into a table, Excel will automatically apply specific formatting and will shade the even or the odd rows so that our data is easier to read. If we add a new row or a new column into our table, right? All the formulas will be automatically copied, and also the formatting will be automatically applied. Okay, so making it easier to add new rows or to new columns into our table. And if we build a calculated column, for example, by using a formula, right? The formulas will automatically be copied to all the rows in our data. So there is no need to copy and paste the formula to all the different rows. So Excel will automatically copy that formula, and we'll understand that all rows should have the same formula applied. Okay. And then, in order to build totals, right, the tables will help us to do so. Okay, so we can use, for example, the sum or the count calculation in order to build table totals. There is no need to use formulas, specific formulas for that. We can just use the totals. All right. So here we have the steps to build our table, and it's going to be much clearer when we do the demo. Okay, when we use the same list of data in order to build our table in Excel. Right. So everything will start by selecting any cell. Right. So the steps are very similar compared to the ones we saw for pivot tables, but instead of the pivot table button, we will have to click on the table button. Okay, so we will click on the table button. We will have to again make sure that the range of data is properly defaulted by Excel. So normally it is. If there are no blank columns or rows, Excel will automatically detect where our data is, and normally our data will also have headers. And with only these three steps, selecting, clicking the table button, and confirming the range of data, Excel will automatically convert our range of data into a table. And the different formatting will be applied, and we will have a new ribbon, a new set of features that come only with pivot tables. Sorry, and that come only with tables. Okay, so let's show that in the in our example. Okay, so let's show how this looks like in our example. All right, so here we had our list of travel requests. Okay, before we convert it into a table, let me do a copy so that we can compare the different features comparing a table and the normal range of data. So I'm gonna copy, right? I'm gonna create a copy of this worksheet, right? So now we have the list of travel requests, and this is gonna be the original. Okay, let me rename it. All right, so we are gonna use the first one to convert the data into a table, and we have always the second one that we are not doing any conversion with it, so that we can compare what happens when we build our table. Okay, so how do we convert this data into a table? We select, or we place the cursor in any of the cells. We click on the insert ribbon, right? And instead of clicking pivot table that we did before, we are gonna click on the table button, right? It can also be done by using the shortcut Ctrl+T, and as you can see in the description, it will automatically create a table to organize and analyze the related data, and it will make it easy to sort, filter, and format the data accordingly. Okay, so I'm gonna click on the table. Automatically Excel detects the range of data from A1 to AR425. That's correct. My table has headers because the first row are the headers. And I'm going to click on OK. You will see that Excel automatically changed the, so the first thing we can see is that Excel automatically changed the formatting. Now we have shade formatting, so even rows are in blue background and the odd rows are white, so it's easier to read. So this was done automatically only by clicking on Insert Table. So we have the formatting. Another nice thing we have is the filter, right? So all this filter came by default when we converted the range into tables. We have these functionalities to sort or to apply filters. If we see our original list, we didn't have any of these features, right? So the formatting was not applied, and we didn't have any sorting and filtering functionality or button. Another thing that is quite useful regarding tables is that if we scroll down, right, you can see that the headers are always kept. So no matter if I go to the bottom of my table, right, so now I'm in the bottom, it's a row 425, I can still understand that this column corresponds to personal number. This is quite a handy feature because normally when we are using or we are in a very big table of data, normally it's difficult to understand what each column corresponds to. For example, if we go to our original worksheet, right, this is our original one. If we start scrolling down, we lose the meaning of each column. So column A, column B, but I don't know what each column represents, right? So if we are scrolling down, we have to go back, right? Go back to the top to see what kind of column we are talking about. So this is a quite interesting feature on tables, right? And it only takes 3 steps, right? It only takes when you get familiar with it, it will only take you less than a minute to convert a range of data into table. Okay. So when we are inside a table, we see that a new ribbon appears, right? A new ribbon specifically for tables. You can see it here, okay? So this ribbon is not available in the original one, right? Because we don't have a table in here. It's only available after converting the range into tables. And in here, what do we have? We have the name of the table, right? So that is automatically set as table 4. We could even change the name and say that here it's a travel request list, right? So we could even put a meaningful name to our table. What else we have here? Sorry. All right. So we could even build our pivot table directly from here. We could remove duplicates. One interesting field here is the total row. So if we flag this total row, it will create a total row at the bottom, right? So let's say that we want to count how many different travel requests we have here. So we can do it just by selecting or by enabling the total row field, right? So the total row, and you can see that now we have the totals available, and we can use it to count, for example, and we have 424. So we can build our totals only by enabling the totals, right? The total row. We can do the same for the cost of the trip, right? We can do the same, and instead of counting, we can do a sum, right? If we want to do the same in our original worksheet, we don't have that available, so we will have to use the the formula insert function, right? So we will need to do insert function and then use the count. Okay. All right. So we could have done the same thing without converting it, but with the tables we are making also the total calculation is we are doing it easy. Okay. What else we have in the design? We can always change, right? We can always change our formatting, right? We can change the different colors. We can use the different colors for formatting the table. And what else? We said that besides formatting the total row and the different headers, it will also help us to add new rows or columns, right? So let's say, for example, that we want to add a calculated value, right? Let's say, for example, we want to add a calculated value to, all right, for example, to let's see, what can we calculate here? Let's say we want to add a calculated value to based on the cost of the trip. Okay. So if I added a new column right here by right-click insert. Automatically, Excel will change the header to column 1, and we can put here total cost minus advance, right? So we want to put here the total cost minus the advance. That we have here cost of the trip minus the advance, right? So we will have to do subtraction, right? So this one minus the advance. Before doing that, we have to convert total advance into a number. So let me do that. All right, convert to number. Convert. All right. So before we proceed, any question regarding tables? Is it clear how to what's the benefits?
Yeah. If you want to add like male, female, can we do this?
Yes, you can always do that. All right. You can add as many columns as you wish. Okay, but you cannot do it. I mean, we wanted to show to you a calculated column. All right. So you can add another. You can add another column and say here male, female, gender, right?
Yeah.
We can put gender, and you can, but we cannot calculate it automatically, right? So you will have to do it manually, or you will have to export it from Umoja. So
Okay.
you can always write down here. Let's say, for example, this one could be male, right? But I cannot calculate it based on any of the information appearing here, right? So we wanted to show to you a calculated column. That's why I added this one, right? Because now, if I indicate here a formula, let's say I put equal cost of the trip minus advance, right? You can see here the first difference. So now, when I apply a formula, Excel will automatically will understand which are the different fields. So it's saying that the cost of the trip minus the total advance will be the result of this column, right? And when I enter this column, Excel will automatically apply the same formula for all the different rows. So I didn't have to copy and paste, right? So you can see that when you apply the formula for a column in in a table, it comes and it copies automatically to all the different rows. If you try to do the same in our original table, so let's go back to our original table. If we try to do the same and we go here to our original table, and I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna add, right? I'm gonna insert a column, and I'm gonna put here cost, total cost minus advance, right? I'm gonna put here total cost minus advance. Let me convert this one into numbers, and you will see that when I put the formula, right, the total cost minus the advance, you see that in the formula we are only referencing cells, right? So in this case we are doing P2 minus R2. So we are not using anymore, so Excel doesn't understand the meaning of each column. And when I enter the formula is only applied to that cell. So if I want to apply it to all the other cells, I have to copy the formula, right, and go and paste it to all the different cells within that column, right? So with the table feature, this operation it becomes easier, right? So now I can copy the formulas, but I have to do it in several steps. With the table, automatically, when I change the formula, right, if I remove it or if I change the formula, it automatically is applied for all the different cells. Okay.
Me? Excuse me?
Okay.
Hello?
Hello, Adnan?
Yes. Can you show me, please, again, how to convert data into numbers?
How to convert the data into numbers?
Text into numbers, the one that you just did a while ago.
Yes. So let me go back, right? So the problem, yeah, good question, Adnan. So the problem we had here is that we wanted to, this was our original data, and we wanted to calculate the total cost minus advance, right? Total cost minus advance. But as you can see here, we have an exclamation mark for the advance. And if we read the warning, it says the number in this cell is formatted as text, all right, or preceded by an apostrophe, right? What does it mean? That for Excel, this 0 is not a number, it's a text, right? So if we try to do, for example, we try to do an operation, let's say the total cost minus the advance, right? It might create problems, right? So in this case, it's doing it properly, but sometimes when you export data from Umoja, numbers will not become numbers, right? So you will have to convert them into real numbers, right? So Anand was asking, how did I get rid of this message, right? So I just clicked on it, and I select the option convert to number. And this is something that sometimes you will need to do when you export data from Umoja and you want to manipulate the data into Excel, right? So when I convert the number, when I convert the text into number, you will see that Excel will understand that this number is now a number and not a text. You can do it for one cell, or you can select all the cells, right, and then go back again to the exclamation mark and convert to number, and Excel will do it for all the different cells, right? So I'm going to click again, and Excel will convert all the data now into numbers, and the exclamation mark will disappear, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. The issue we have usually when we
Yes.
import things from iNeed, for example, generate a report. Some of the data, some of the dates will be imported as date, and the same
As
field
numbers,
will
right?
be as text. But like this warning message is not available there, so like it's that was like a bit surprisingly here, like. But maybe I mean I was doing like I was converted into creating a function to convert it into number, and then another function to convert the number into a date. But like if I have this feature, that will be much more easier. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So yeah, with the dates, right? Dates are a little bit painful, right? Because depending on the format, so you can see that if you right-click, for example, here we have two different dates, right? The trip start date and trip end date, right? And now they are, if we look at the formatting for that cell, they have a date format, right? But if you change it into number format, it will appear as numbers, right? So sometimes when you export data from iNeed or from Umoja, Excel will not understand that column corresponds to a date, and you will see only the number, and that you will, I mean, you should be able to change the formatting to date to show the date in the proper formatting, and then you can choose how you want to display that specific date, right? So yes, dates are sometimes a little bit painful to format them in the proper way. Okay. But yes, when you see an exclamation mark next to a cell, it means that the Excel is not really understanding the type of data for that column. Okay, and sometimes you have the options to convert the text into a figure or vice versa. Okay, so is it clear how we convert a range of data into a table, right? So we just place our cursor in any of the cells, click on Insert and Tables, or now, for example, I got used to do that, and I use my shortcut, Control-T, and this screen appears. I click on Enter, right? So it only takes you 2 seconds, right? So I do it again, Control-T, Enter, and everything is converted. So I usually use it all the time because it's very fast, and it's more convenient in terms of sorting and filtering, formatting, and from there we can use totals, we can use calculated columns, and we can even, the thing we explained before about pivot tables, we can even do it from here, summarize with pivot tables, and now Excel will automatically understand that we are talking about summarizing an entire table and not a range of data, right? Same thing here, right? We changed our data to TR list. So if we summarize with pivot table, we can define, okay, we want to summarize the entire table, right? We want to summarize our TR list table. Okay, and we can do the same thing we did before to build our pivot table as we did before. All right, more comments or questions? Delete. Okay.
Sorry, may you please continue this, the last pivot table, just to
summarize
again how you...
Yeah, so
yes, that's fine.
We did it, remember we did it before with the, we went to Insert. Okay. We want to, when we explain it with using Insert Pivot Table. If our range of data is already a table, we can also do it from the Design Summarize with Pivot Table. So there are 2 ways. If our data is a pivot table, we can do it from the Design Summarize a Pivot Table. Otherwise, from Insert, click on Pivot Table. Right? So we do it summarize with pivot table, and in our select range of data, right? We do it. We select our range of data. We select our new worksheet, and our pivot table will appear as blank, right? So here it's our pivot table as a blank grid. I'm gonna change the name again.
Yeah, this is what I want. Yani, we have also again to insert the
Yes.
type to each one. Can you do that?
Yeah, sure. So let's say, for example, we want to analyze the cost by let's say by employee group, right? So we put the cost of the trip as values, right? We have the total cost, and we put the employee group as rows. Okay, so we have here the summary. So we have that most of the cost corresponds to local staff, right? We can even, to make it more readable, we can even format this cost by clicking on value field settings. Okay, we can add, right, in the number format, we can say, okay, I want to use numbers, and I don't want decimal places, and I want the thousand separator. Okay, and it's gonna become a little bit more readable, right? So I don't have now the decimal fields, and I have the thousands separator, and I can see that most of the cost correspond to local staff.
Okay.
All right. And we have a question, but what if our data changes? So how can we refresh this data? How can we refresh it? For example, let's say that now in the list of travel requests, let's say that now I add a new column that says, for example, what can we add as a new column? Okay, so let's say, for example, here I have the position that indicates if it's P4, P2, P1. All right. So let's say we want to add a new column that is the position level, right? Position level, and I want to get P4, P2, right? I want to get that one. So we can use a formula, right, to get the first two letters, right? So we can use the left formula. All right. So I want to get the first two letters from the position, right? So number of letters 2. Right? So here I have basically, it's not working for the interpreters, but for the rest I can see that I have a P4, P2, right? I can see the level, right? So if I want to analyze the cost of the trip by level, right? I can see here that the position level is not showing here. So this new column that I added is not showing in our pivot table. So how can I display it? So I will have to right click. Sorry, I will have to wait. Okay, I will have to go to analyze, refresh all, right? So if I click on refresh, our position level now displays here.
So you have to insert it to the sheet, then it will be automatically in the field data.
Yes, it will be automatically after you click on refresh.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and then we can use it, right? So instead of adding the employee group, we can add the position level, right? And we can see, for example, for G1, G2, and even P2, P3, P4, right? The total cost depending on the position level. Okay?
And we can add like with quantity, like, or number, you know?
Yes, sure. I mean, you can change. For example, if you want to
At the
report.
same time, to know for like G3 how many staff like this, you know,
Yes.
just to know
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can summarize it by cost of the trip, or you can even remove cost of the trip and add, for example, if you want to count, you can add any text field, right? For example, the employee group. So this is important, right? How can you count, right? So there is, if you add any number column as values, it will automatically apply a sum, right? For example, personnel number is the index number, and it's a number, right? So if I add it as values, Excel will automatically apply a sum, even if it doesn't make any sense, right? To add up all the different index numbers, right? So this figure doesn't have any sense, and we can change the configuration, right? So we can change, instead of summing, we want to use count. So how can we change it? We click here, value field settings, and instead of a sum, we use the count, right? Instead of summing personnel numbers, we want to count them, right? Counting how many we have. And we can click on OK, and now we are back to our 424, and we can see that for a P4 we have 17 trips, for the P3 we have 11, and if we, as we said, if we double click on any of the cells, Excel will display how many we have, right? So, for example, for a P2 we have 2 different trips belonging to, in this case, to the same employee, right? To employee with index number 609821. Okay, personnel area Thailand, Bangkok, but with 2 different trip numbers, right? So the same person traveled twice in different dates. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So as we were saying before, the best way will be you to play a little bit with the example and to build your own pivot tables and tables, right? So in your exercise, you will be asked to configure different pivot tables like these ones. We will be asking you to convert a range into a table and to apply some sort and filtering, and to apply and to calculate another column, right, based on the fields available. Okay, so you will have to practice pivot tables in Excel. All right. So last thing we wanted to cover, it's very easy, we wanted to cover in this session is the concept of duplicated values. So this is the last thing, and it's the easiest one. And we want to see how we can remove the duplicated values. Sometimes when you export data from Umoja or from any other source system, you have data that are duplicated, okay? Duplicated maybe in terms of one of the fields. For example, in our travel request, we have a particular row for each travel request, but as we've seen, we can have people traveling more than once, so we will have repeated index number, right? So we want to get the unique list of index numbers. We could use this remove duplicates feature. Okay, so we have this remove duplicates features in a worksheet, and we can select which is the column we want to look for duplicates. Here are the steps in order to remove the duplicates, and usually what we do, we copy the data into a different worksheet before removing duplicates, because after removing duplicates, our duplicate values will be cropped or will be removed from our data. So it's always the preferred option is always to copy the data into a different worksheet. Okay. So here you have the steps. So we will select the range of cells where our data is located, and we will click on the remove duplicate button appearing in the data ribbon. Okay. we will need to select the columns where we want to find for duplicates, and Excel will tell us how many duplicate values were found and removed, and how many unique values remain in our worksheet. Okay. Have you done this before in Excel? I don't know if you are familiar with the duplicated.
Can you give example, please?
Yes. Yes. Sure. Yeah. Start. So let's do an example. Okay. All right. Okay. So let me close this one because it's already okay. Let me close this one. Save, and let me add again. This is our original Excel file. So what do we mean by duplicates? So here we have a list of travel requests, right? And we said if we want to remove duplicates, it's always a good option to copy, right? To copy the worksheet we are going to be working with, right? So I'm going to create a copy, okay? And here it is. So what do we mean by duplicates? We said that we will click on Data, Remove Duplicates, right? The different columns will appear, right? And so we will need to select the columns where we want to look for duplicates. And what do we mean by that? So if we select everything, nothing will happen. No data will be removed, right? No duplicates values found. What does it mean? That there are no rows that are identical. Why? Because we have one row for each trim number, so at least the trim number is unique. But the thing is that the people traveling are the same one. For example, I mean, we can have index number 172144. That is, it appears it's traveling more than once, right? It's traveling 5 times. So if we want to get the list of unique index numbers, right, how can we get it? So we could click on Data, Remove Duplicates, right? And we, instead of selecting all the different columns, right, we only select personal number, right? And Excel will automatically look for personal numbers that are unique. Is that clear?
Yes, clear.
So when I click on OK, in this case, 242 duplicate index numbers were found, and only 182 out of the 424 rows remain as unique, right? So here now we have the list of unique index numbers, so we don't have any repeated. So please remember to mute your microphone, right? So we remove the duplicated values, and now we have the list of unique index numbers. Okay. But as we were saying, once we do it, I just undid the. So here we have the list of unique index numbers. Once you do it, it's done, and your data is removed. Okay. So if you want to keep your original data, it's always best to copy it.
Question?
Sure.
Yeah. When you remove the duplicates, what about the other records? Are they like going to be consolidated? Like if there is some something with quantity or cost, are they going to be summarized or?
No. It's just a cropped. So that's a thing you need to consider, right? So for example, here, let's say that in our original data we had 5 different records for that personal number, right? For example, yeah. if we look at our original data, we have 5 different records.
So,
right?
so
it will be the data appearing here now is not consistent for example, for trim numbers, because if we look at that row, our data will be now, the trip number will be 2144 and the cost 2,690. That it relates, I'm assuming, to the first one. So if we go to the right, we can see now that you see, so Excel automatically deleted the repeated ones, and it's only showing the first one for each staff member.
Okay.
So if we want to summarize, for example, if what you want to do is to summarize by personnel number, let's say that you want to, for each personnel number, you want to see how many trips and what's the total cost. How would you do that?
Pivot table.
Pivot table, yes. If you think about summarizing, again, we do a pivot table, we click on OK, and then we put personnel number as rows, right? We put, let's say, employee group as values to count, right? And here we can see number of trips, number of TRs. You can see that for index number 172,144, you have 5 travel requests. And you can even have the total cost, right? The cost of the trip, you can add it next to the number of trips, right? And you will see how many trips for each index number and what's the total cost for each of them, right? So cost. So every time you think about summarizing, think about pivot tables. So you can see now by index number what's the number of trips and what's the total cost. And you can see from here, this column A, you also have the unique, right, index numbers, because you only have one row per traveler, and that's why we have 185. That is the same number of unique index numbers we got here, right? So here we had again 183, right? 183. So in total here, how many do we have? We have 182, and in the pivot table we should have the same. So we have 182. So we have 182 unique index numbers and a total of 424 trips. Okay. So I hope that answered your question. So you have to be careful when using the remove duplicate functionality, because it will depend on what you're trying to do. It might delete some of the useful data you have in your data. All right. Any other question or comment? So sorry, we took 5 minutes more of the expected schedule.
Yeah, one more question.
Sure.
It's a logistic question. How can we send the exercises? Is like to reply you as an Excel sheet, as a Word document? Because
yes.
the first question is a question like to be answered in the same Word exercise. If we go to the first question, but the rest need to be done in Excel. So we
right.
create like sheet numbers per each question.
Yes, definitely.
And then send it to you, like one Word document and one Excel sheet.
Yes, so you will have to reply back to us the Word document, okay, together with the Excel file, and in the Excel file we will find your answer to each question. So, for example, as you were saying, Anand, this question number 2, you will need to create a pivot table looking like that, okay? So you could build a pivot table, and then let's say, for example, you are building this one, right? So you will need to build, right? Then you add the let's say the personnel area, and once you have it, you change you rename the worksheet and you say question 2, for example. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good question, Anton. So you should be receiving from us the email, right? You have all the information, but just to confirm that, we will be sending an email asking you to complete this exercise. You'll have plenty of time to do that. And remember that this afternoon we have a session to support you if you have issues doing the exercises. Okay, so you have another one that is optional, but if you want to connect and talk to us about any of the things we have reviewed, feel free to do it.
So the session afternoon will be based on the same topic, like Excel and supporting.
Yeah, this session this afternoon is just an open session for questions and answers. So if you are doing the exercise and you're facing any issue, you can connect to the WebEx session and talk to us. Okay, so there will be no presentation. It's just an open channel for you to ask questions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other thing before we close this session? Okay. So
how much time the exercise should take? How many questions you are sending?
In total, there are 8 questions, but I mean, depending on how familiar you are with it, it can take you from 10 minutes to I don't know, 1 hour and a half.
So we have all the data. We have made to do exercise as you are, and you are showing the answers, but just you have to do copy. Yeah.
Yes. So you have the Excel file, okay, with the data, and you also have the questions, right? So you have here the solution, and you need to build it into Excel. You need to build that pivot table into Excel and send it back to us so that we know that you completed that one. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll talk this afternoon. Okay, in case you connect, and otherwise see you tomorrow in the SRM session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Leandro.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.